Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 2023 verdict. We're coming to you live from Nigeria. Well, there you heard a speech by the president, the State of the Nation address, which we will talk about in a moment. I'm Chamberlain, so welcome to the program.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Maukwe Ogun Yusuf.
And from Lagos, good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
February 16. Today it's a Thursday morning. Welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Well, so there you go. But just before we get in there, we'd like to remind you some of our platforms, as we always do, the social media handles that you can get across to us with. If you just heard the speech by the president, I know there'll be some reactions coming from you, how this will ease what is going on out there. We'll talk about that as well. But don't forget that hashtag 2023 verdict. You can also use the 2023 verdict at channelstv.com. You could tweet at us, Sunrise Daily Now, any of our handles there. Just tweet at us. Get your voices heard as quick and as much as you can, because who knows, it might have been what you were going through that informed this speech. And so if you speak a little further, who knows, it might need some fine-tuning if they consider it necessary, but it will all depend on you, because that policy is supposed to make you all feel good. But then the countdown also continues here today on the 2023 verdict. How many days to the elections now? Because the president also did speak about that, saying on February 25th, we will be going out there to perform that big civic responsibility. And it's good to hear. So all of those rumors that made the rounds about rescheduling the elections, at least no such thing. So if you had any of those thoughts, perish that idea. So 9 days, everybody, to the big one. And the clock is indeed ticking, my friend.
Indeed, Chamberlain, quite a speech the president delivered there. And as you rightly told our viewers to please send in their comments to the boxes which we have announced earlier. We'll be looking to hear from them. I do not know if your city was affected by what we saw yesterday happening in different parts of the country, protests and in some instances riots. Tell us what your experience was like, especially if you were in Edo, if you were in Delta, if you were in Kwara. Let us know how, you felt yesterday. Were you scared? And do you feel reassured this morning now that the president has delivered a speech, especially reassuring citizens that there is now an extension to that date for the, is it Naira swap? Or, putting in your money, putting in your money into the banks and permitting the old 200 Naira notes circulate alongside the new notes. He says that the old notes, that's the 1,000 Naira and the 500 Naira, will only be acceptable now by the CBN, so we should make use of designated points. But the 200 Naira notes has been granted an extension till the 10th of April this year. So let us know what you think, and if you were affected by what happened yesterday, let us know what your experiences are as well.
And then look at this. When he says he directed the citizens, the CBN, to ensure that citizens enjoy easy access to cash withdrawal through available, appropriate, I'll go again, easy access to cash withdrawal through availability of appropriate amount of currency and ability to make deposits. So those were some of the huge challenges a lot of people were experiencing. Ability to withdraw cash, then ability to deposit. So now, how the CBN will operationalize this will be the thing. So I haven't heard the speech from the president. Do we expect further explanation from the CBN in terms of what they will then do? What measures are they going to address or announce to the DMBs, the banks, to ensure that this speech of the president, this policy change, is implemented? So who knows what to expect and when that will come through from the CBN, or do you think this is clear enough for everybody else, including the deposit money banks? Because these days you just wonder. So, so they will also collaborate with, look at that, anti-corruption agencies, so as to ensure that any institution or persons found to have impeded or sabotaged the implementation should be made to bear the full weight of the law. So they get feelers now that lots of people, or there are several people, or some people in some quarters probably are sabotaging this policy. So there you go. So
well, I know some people, he was very specific about unscrupulous bank officials, you know, who were mentioned. Well, their names weren't mentioned, but at least it's these people in the banking industry that are being fingered as having tried to sabotage, and he, to that effect, has directed the CBN to work with anti-corruption agencies to ensure that, you know, the beauty or the policy is properly implemented. Well, we have a lot of other news items. I know that we'll be digging into the speech for you much later on the program, but let's go to Lagos now to take on our other news items on the program today.
Well, thank you, Mark. Well, most certainly cheering news. Some people would see that to be that 200 Naira notes are now back in circulation fully. The question you want to even ask is, first of all, where are the 100 Naira notes after all? Those ones weren't outlawed.
Apart from that, you know, where were the coins before now?
Please.
I know you don't want to hear anything about the coins.
Please don't even.
You know, but you have to look at the bright side.
It's
you know,
bright
because
enough here.
in the absence of the higher denominations, the lower denominations get more value. But the question is, how much, you know, can any denomination of the currency buy in the first place? So value should be created. But, you know, it's a welcome development all the same. You should laud that aspect of the policy. How this will now ease the suffering of Nigerians, you know, the allowance given by the president in his speech now to allow the 200 Naira circulate, that's what is yet to be seen. And how much will be released to the banks, you know, that's the big question that has been asked, you know, since this difficulty started.
You know, one of the things, of course, you know that the president also mentioned that the issue is in the courts.
Yeah.
Okay. What the Supreme Court said was action should be stayed. Is this in any way stay in action, or in every way stay in action, or is it, I don't know. But
is it a partial?
I'm not a lawyer.
Partial obedience to Supreme Court order?
Exactly, I know.
We really don't know.
Anyway, but to news today.
The lawyers will interpret it
Oh,
for
yes,
us.
and I'm sure that the brickbats are going to start anytime soon. Well, we know that today in the news, PDP will be taking its campaign train to Taraba State today. And, of course, you know that all the parties are gradually winding down. Everyone has to end their campaigns a few days or maybe 1 or 2 days before the elections of Saturday, 25th.
48 hours according to INEC rules and regulations.
Yes, so that's certainly one thing that a number of people will be looking to. So that's it today. PDP will take its campaign to Taraba State today.
Also, we have NSCDC decorating newly promoted senior officers of the Corps. And, you know, this is something to look forward to. Well, amid the Corps, maybe not here. And we hope that this gets them fired up to, you know, to offer more services, professionalism, and be, you know, efficient in the discharge of their duties. And this is not just the paramilitary force that is starting the year on a bright note. We also heard earlier in the year the Federal Road Safety Corps, you know, giving out largesse to their officials. So we hope that less vehicles will be stopped unnecessarily.
Well, I guess we'll wait to see, but you see, NSCDC always paints a picture in the mind, especially when you remember what is happening. But I mean, this has something to do with national security to decorate newly promoted senior officers. And let's also hope that with their promotion, other people will always come up the ladder, and it will be an impetus for several other people to do the. There's a lot more in the news today, but I guess we'll bite on them as we progress. Chamberlain.
All right, so that said, let's go ahead and take you through some of the dailies here today. We'll start off with Leadership newspaper this morning. Cash crunch, 3 killed as protests erupt in 8 states and FCT. Bank buildings, vehicles vandalized, set ablaze. PMB to address the nation today. You already did. Supreme Court retains order suspending a Naira swap deadline. CBN issues guidelines for depositing old notes. Passengers stranded at railway stations. So what do all of this mean in context, in the light of the president's speech which was delivered today? So that may be the big one here, and that's why we ask you to send your comments to us in terms of what did you expect from the authorities, or perhaps the president to have said, and then considering what he has said, how does that address the challenge that you specifically faced with access to cash, whichever way, on any platform whatsoever. So we would love to hear from you on that one. But then, just above this lead story, prices of bread, cereals push inflation to 21.82%. That's leadership today.
Okay, well, take a look at Daily Trust this morning, and they also focus on what is now termed Naira crisis. Federal government states consider out-of-court settlement. Mint requires 12 months to print 1 trillion Naira needed to stabilize economy. That's attributed to El Rufai. It is not a part of the banking industry. I think that's what the governor believes. 4 killed in Edo as protests rock states. Buhari meets Tinubu at Aso Rock. You find all of the details on page 4 of the paper. They also have pictures of protests across the states over scarcity of new Naira notes yesterday. So that is also captured for you on the front page. Old Naira notes remain legal tender. That's according to the Supreme Court. It looks like the president has specified which of the old Naira notes remain legal tender. A very delicate balancing act there. We have to ask lawyers this morning whether indeed the federal government and the CBN are now being seen to be complying with the Supreme Court order. Details will be on page 6 of the paper in case you want to read that story. Naira slides at parallel markets, strengthens at official window. It's a page 19 read for you. You have a number of other stories. This one might interest you. MC Oluomo, we won't redeploy Lagos REC. That's according to INEC. There's been some controversy about how INEC is going to deploy logistics in Lagos, considering the body that it's going to be using to deploy its materials, I think NATO, which is headed by MC Oluomo. But you find details on page 27 of the paper. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust.
And flip to This Nigeria newspaper. This Nigeria newspaper also leads with the Naira crisis. And that's the way, you know, the first line is captioned. Edo, Delta, Oyo, Kogi, others burn. 4 die as angry citizens attack banks, make barricades, bonfires. Supreme Court, old notes remain legal tender. That's, you know, the decision of the Supreme Court after adjourning the new hearing to February 22, and that's how it's reported here. Take a look at this one above the nameplate, right beside the nameplate. It's also about you know, monetary issues. Nigeria's inflation rate soars to 21.82%, highest in 17 years. How the Naira crisis has pushed up inflation, well, we'll find out in the coming days when we subject this to scrutiny. Let's move to politics now. This one is right beside the big picture on the front page of This Nigeria. Tinubu takes campaign to Rivers, meets Wike, Amechi absent at rally. Well, the former minister has been absent at a lot of the All Progressives Congress meetings in recent times. But that's not the big part of the story. The big part is the APC delegation meeting with the River State governor. He got a lot of tongues wagging yesterday with a lot of interpretations made, you know, about that visit. But we'll find out what our resource persons will be saying about it later on today. Ayo, you want to say something?
No, I don't want to say.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Right under that one, you find Obi, most popular choice among Nigerians. New survey claims. If you're interested in that one, who's conducting this latest poll? It's a page, well, it's not captioned here, but you'll find it inside This Nigeria. And lastly, from the front page of This Nigeria, northern leaders decry poverty, insecurity in region. Let's leave it there for This Nigeria.
The Nigerian News Direct has this one on its front page. Old notes deadline. Is there a scoop somewhere? El Rufai plaintiff governors reject Buhari's proposals. And look at the riders. Fault 60-day extension deadline for only 200 Naira notes. El Rufai Yahya Bello Storm Court put hope on Supreme Court judgment as El Rufai denies governor's meeting with Buhari. That story you'll find on page 2. But that's not all about the new Naira notes. Rejection of old Naira notes. Southwest governors go tough on banks. As Marco said the other time, it's a very delicate balance right there. But right above the nameplate, look at that. Nigeria loses over 1 trillion Naira to illegal operation of space objects. Let's ascribe to Agbakuba. What does that mean? Find the details right there on the inside pages of the paper. And the unfortunate incidents in Turkey. Death toll from Turkey earthquake exceeds 40,000. Oh my God. That's the Nigerian News Direct this morning.
Well, take a look at New Telegraph next. Cash crunch. Buhari meets Emefiele, considers extending validity of old notes. Well, you already had an update on this matter this morning with the president's speech. As CBN launches portal for old notes collection. Oh, there you go. Governors divided over Apex Bank's cash swap policy. 6 states join as plaintiffs. Edo, Bayelsa, back FG. Oh, there you go. So Edo and Bayelsa don't need discussion. But there was protest, a lot of protest in Edo. As a matter of fact, on this one.
Well, you heard what the commissioner from Edo said. He believes, or they believe, that those attacks were sponsored by the APC.
And he named names of who they suspect sponsored it.
Yeah.
Goodness me. Look at this. Supreme Court adjourns suit to February 22. Directs all parties to amend processes to reflect new positions. FG officials seeking out-of-court settlement, El Rufai alleges. So this also broke yesterday, as a matter of fact, on this one. So there you go. And then you see 8 days to presidential election. Wike G5 governors taking political gamble. Shehu Sani says governors fighting Naira policy want to buy votes with old notes. But in the meantime, we're ready for polls. INEC. There you go. I thought it was yesterday that headline was 10 days elections, we've got no cash. But today, we're ready for polls. Tell you what 24 hours can do in the life of a country. And then you see, this is an opportunity to redeem Nigeria, Igali. Accept defeat. If you lose, PDP tells Tinubu, APC. It never ends, does it? Bread, yam, others raise inflation to 21.82% in January. You also heard it previously in another paper, but also featuring here this morning. Well, that is New Telegraph today.
And from New Telegraph, let's quickly take a look at Daily Independent. It also leads with, the upheaval experienced in the nation yesterday. This is how it is captioned. New Naira scarcity. 3 feared dead as protests rock Edo, Delta, Oyo, Ondo. Let's take a look at the riders. Protesters destroy banks, ATM facilities, cause gridlock. Okowa, Abdulrazak, Makinde, Obaseki call for calm. Sanwo-Olu warns against rejection of old Naira notes. Indeed, after issuing a statement, appreciating Lagosians for the calmness demonstrated, well, in the light of the protests experienced in other parts of the country yesterday. Well, Nigerians have now cause to smile, but at what cost? 3 persons reportedly died in Edo State yesterday, and suffice it to, just say that there should be, some form of calm across the country, such that, when the Naira is now released, you can spend your money. Those individuals who died yesterday can't spend their money anymore. So it's important to stand in unity at this point.
And it's also instructive to note that most of the upheavals, as you said, that we've been having, it's been largely from the south. Why is that? I guess it's something to pay a little attention. And by the way, you raised that issue yesterday about the judiciary. Well, the Lagos State Judiciary put up a notice on that, and I think that issue has been put to rest.
Well, without accepting that, the South seems to be experiencing the challenge and the North is, removed from it, it suffices to say that the super agents, deployed by the CBN to ensure that the cash swap policy is, goes around, they found in the South. We see a lot of them in the North, but not enough in the South.
Well, it's something that we all should pay attention to, right? Kimberly?
So don't forget the story of the day. The Supreme Court adjourned the case on Naira swap. We'll talk about that and more today on the program.
It is unusual to see serving state governors in court. However, the presence of some state governors is indicative of the seriousness of the case at hand. The courtroom of the Supreme Court is filled to its capacity with senior advocates of Nigeria, attorneys general of states who have filed suits for joinder, and other lawyers. Kaduna, Kogi, and Zamfara states had initially filed a motion ex parte praying the apex courts to halt the Naira redesign policy of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The court had granted an interim injunction restraining the government, the apex bank, and commercial banks from implementing the February 10 deadline for the use of old notes of the 3 highest denominations of the Naira. At the resumed hearing, 7 states, Lagos, Cross River, Ogun, Ekiti, Ondo, Katsina, and Sokoto states applied to be joined in the suit as plaintiffs, while Edo and Bayelsa states joined the suit in support of the policy. The 7-man panel led by Justice John Okoro reiterated its February 8 order, barring the federal government from enforcing the February 10 deadline. This clarification became necessary after counsel to the initial 3 states, Mr. Abdul Hakim Mustafa, told the courts that the federal government and its agencies have failed to comply with the February 8 order.
We made the point to the court that the court order of 8th of February restraining the defendant is still subsisting, and the court confirmed now, and the implication of that is that the old notes still remain as legal tender in this country. The policy or directive given by the CBN governor becomes inconsequential.
It's a national problem, and we are working towards solving this problem. There aren't 2 sides. We are affected on both sides. We are trying to solve it.
Some states have ordered banks in their jurisdiction to stop collecting the old Naira notes. Some of the governors speak on the court proceedings.
And I want to urge, and of course, all of us governors, we want to urge all Nigerians. Yes, we are all suffering, but let's stay alive. Let's maintain peace, law and order. If we kill ourselves, others will remain there to enjoy your money. It is just a temporary setback for us in this country. We are not condemning this particular policy of President Muhammadu Buhari. It is going to be the way to go, but the implementation, that is what we are questioning.
The court subsequently adjourned the case to February the 22nd for hearing of the consolidated case and directed the plaintiffs to amend their originating summons to reflect the name of the 7 fresh suits from the states.
Welcome back to the 2023 verdict. Well, the policy affects everybody. So we've got, as you've seen, the Ireti Kingibe, senatorial candidate of the FCT in the Labour Party. She joins us here in the studios. Good morning, madam. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, but we also do have Mr. Monday Obani. You know him. He's a legal practitioner, former second vice president of the NBA, chairman, Speedel. So he will be giving us the legal perspective on this matter as we proceed, because there's a lot of, it appears to be, what, murky waters, uncharted territory, some areas not too clear for laymen. He will be speaking to us as well. But let's get, first of all, the views of Mrs. Ireti Kingibe here with us, because, I mean, I know that you've been out there in the streets and during your campaigns, you get feelers from people, how they feel about all of these policies. One thing on paper, well-intended as they tell us, but on the streets out there in terms of how people feel, what kind of feedback were you getting from people when you went out there?
Well, most people are suffering, but amazingly, it seems we're adjusting.
Oh.
Because at least in Abuja, we seem to be. It's very difficult. I feel that the concept and the idea behind all of this is good, but implementation has been terrible. I mean, if we're allowed only 20,000 Naira, people should have at least access to just that little bit. Because it doesn't matter how much you put, you can't get any money.
But with this speech now by the president, I know you might have been in trance here trying to get things together for this program, but with the little bit of the speech, whichever part you got of this speech, what does that do? Do you think it assuages any frayed nerves out there? Are things going to be all right? Will people think that, okay, maybe, just maybe, we may be able to access cash? What do you think?
Well, I was in Nyanya yesterday, and when I say Nyanya, I mean the parts of Nyanya that you would never, ever go to. Oh. And the general impression I got with them is like, okay, things are tough, but if we can just get through this 1 week, maybe after the elections, things might ease up. Because for some reason, we're all focused on the part that we think part of the reason that this is happening is to prevent vote buying. It has had also some good side effects in that armed robbery has reduced, kidnapping for ransom, a lot of these things, because nobody has cash. So, I mean, am I going to transfer money to a kidnapper or to an armed robber? No. But also, Nigerians, I also think, have exploited the situation. People, yesterday, somebody was offering me money at 25%. Wow. And I said to the person that was offering it to me, the person who you are getting it from, where did he get it from? And he laughed and said, madam, the people who have money. So I'm wondering if at the end of the day, whether the policy would actually achieve what it's meant to achieve.
Okay, let's try Mr. Obani. He joins us virtually this morning as well on the program. Good morning, Mr. Obani. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, there's several areas really. First, the matter that is in court, and then the speech by the president. There are many who are wondering what the implication of that speech is in relation to that decision of the court, which they have now adjourned till to a later date. But at the moment, having listened to that speech, what were your immediate impressions about it in the light of what's playing out in the country?
Yeah, thank you, Chamberlain, for having me. I want to appreciate the fact that the president of the country has finally spoken to Nigerians, because since after the interim order that was made by the Supreme Court, There has been silence on the part of the president and the central bank, except yesterday that the central bank spoke to the community, the European community and other people that came for a meeting with him. But the president now has broken the silence and has spoken. But I tell you this, the president has actually overruled the Supreme Court decision. That is actually what I understand the president saying this morning. There was an interim order which said that, look, you have a deadline on 10th of February. You should hold on until the Supreme Court look at the grievances that have been brought by the state before the Supreme Court. There was an ex parte order that was made. Now, the Supreme Court was supposed to probably review the matter yesterday, but unfortunately, many states were joining in this suit, and so many other states are also coming afresh with new grievances concerning the monetary implementation. And so the Supreme Court saw the wisdom in allowing all these parties to come in so that there will be proper parties before the Supreme Court before they can now go ahead to look at the issue on its merit, and that's why the adjournment took place yesterday till next week. But unfortunately, what the presidency have done this morning, or the president has done, is that the president have actually, ignored whatever is going on at the Supreme Court by the pronouncement that is made this morning. There is no other way. When you say you only allow 200 to be in circulation, meaning that 1,500 notes is no longer a legal tender. You can only return through the rigorous process the central bank has put in place. So my own understanding of what has taken place by the president's announcement this morning, that it has overruled the Supreme Court, is clearly not mindful of what is going in the Supreme Court. What he has just done is a meaning I can attach to it. I'm not interested in what is going on before the Supreme Court. My own position with my central bank governor is that the only money I will allow now in circulation is only 200 old notes. The new money is only money that remains a legal tender. So if you now want to return the old notes, if they're still with you, you go through the rigorous process that the central bank has put in place, not even going to the commercial banks. Because remember that when MFLA appeared before the National Assembly, he made a promise that the old currency will still remain in circulation, and you can only return it through the commercial banks. He mentioned commercial banks. Immediately he left that particular meeting ground, he now changed his words and said the only procedure is now through the central bank. So how can you, rate such a government that in everything that is inconsistency, you made a promise, this is a procedure, all of a sudden you left the ground, and the next thing you now say that it's only the central bank you can return the money. So to me, I am not too happy with what has happened this morning in terms of the president overruling the Supreme Court. I'm not too happy that we are laying a proper precedent as a nation. We are not telling the entire world that we are practicing democracy. That is what I have understood that has happened this morning. And every other person that is very sane will also understand what we're saying, that it is not a proper precedent. The world is watching us. The international community they're all watching us. Now, if you cannot obey your court orders, how do you instill confidence in them to probably come into your country and make an investment in case there is any dispute? Can there be a decision of a court that can be complied by people within your country? So you are not sending a right signal. That is my take. I may be wrong, but I'm saying that the president's intervention would have been to allow the Supreme Court to probably resolve this matter, and not the way you have come midstream to cut short what is actually going on before the court. It is a take I'm doing because of my love for rule of law, my love for Nigeria, my love for Nigerians, and not for any political party or for any individual.
Well, we understand your concern as a lawyer. Some people will say that, there's also the policy to be looked at. The president went on to list the reason why he found it necessary to implement this policy. Part 7, has at least 5 points why the president wanted to, implement the policy. Don't you think that it will be a total failure of policy if, all of the notes were to come back into circulation? Some people will say that it totally then defeats the purpose of the redesign. That if the president has said that 200 Naira notes old 200 Naira notes be in circulation, then perhaps he's somewhat complied, or he has complied with the order of the Supreme Court asking that the old notes be in circulation alongside the new. You don't agree?
I don't agree with the statement I had, unless I had a different thing entirely. He only allowing 200 Naira old to be in circulation with the new notes. The other old notes, according to him, 500 and 1,000, will have to be returned only through the central bank. I heard him very clearly on that. Now, listen to the president's speech this morning. He made a very valid point that the implementation of this particular monetary policy has inflicted some level of hardship on Nigeria. And that is why he felt, as a father, when he was approached for extension, he did extend to 10th of February. That is a good statement he has made. Now, has the problem eased, as it is, has the hardship not continued? Have you not seen what happened in all the states of the Federation, some of the states yesterday, where people became frustrated and had now attacked banks? And then there were some chaos and all problems that occurred yesterday. Were you not aware? As I speak to you, I called my two bank officials yesterday. I said, can I get 5,000 Naira new notes? Because the old notes, people are no longer accepting. And he told me that there is no money, that they don't have any money within their banking custody. So you have talked about hardship. You have talked about a situation where you had to extend because you felt for the people. Now, has that particular problem eased? Has it not intensified in terms of suffering that the people are undergoing? They don't have access to their money. Look, nobody is against any monetary policy that the federal government wants to implement, for the purpose of micro or macro, viability, for the nation. And some people have also attributed the fact that, look, this monetary policy is going to help us in the long run. Let's know how much of our money is in circulation. And then let us try as much as possible to reduce the level of inflation. It may have its own advantage. What we're talking is the issue of implementation. And the central bank governor has come up to say, look, we don't have enough currency. He said, we don't have enough material even to print the new currency. That is what I heard last week, unless that is not what he said. Nobody's even talking about that. The president is now laying blame on the bank officials, and not talking about the inefficiency and the problem that central bank has encountered even in printing the money and making it available to the various banks. So we must place these things into context. We are not against the program is being implemented. We are saying that your implementation strategy is very faulty. Nigerians are not having the old money. Meanwhile, you ask them to bring the old money back into the banking sector, and they have done that. Now, give me my money. You are not giving me my money in order for me to trade. And I'm finding it difficult now to deal with people. Yesterday, somebody came to repair my AC and said the amount of money I will pay is 2,500. And I said, can I transfer money? So I don't have any account. I'm not going to, you have to give me cash. So I'm still battling how to pay him today. So I cannot have money to spend. Is the economy being properly guided in the light of what is happening, that people are not spending because they don't have access to the money to spend? You rather buy money. This is the first time in the world where people are using money to buy money, and it's happening in Nigeria for the first time. So my take is that the president has seen that the problem has continued. Will it be right now for him not to ease the problem, to continue to inflict more hardship on Nigerians?
Mr. Obani, the pronouncement was just made today. I mean, just this morning at 7 a.m. We're not even yet at 8 o'clock. So by 8 o'clock today, when the banks open, given the directive given by the president, there should be no excuse why at least the old 200 Naira notes should not be made available, because this was already being speculated even as at yesterday. But let me read a very important part of this speech, because you have raised concerns about the rule of law. You talked about, how you think that the Supreme Court order is being flouted as a result of the president's speech. But let me read this part, number 15. It says, I similarly consulted widely with representatives of the state governors as well as the Council of State. Above all, as an administration that respects the rule of law, I have also noted that the subject matter is before the courts of our land, and some pronouncements have been made. So it is after that he now says, to further ease the supply pressures, particularly to our citizens, I have given approval to the CBN that the old 200 Naira banknotes be released back into circulation, and it should be allowed to circulate as legal tender with the new 200, 500, 1,000 Naira banknotes for 60 days. So it was saying that the president, don't forget that he convoked this Council of State meeting just last week, Friday. And then there's also the Supreme Court ruling to also put it into consideration. So it seems that he's taking all of this advice on board to see how perhaps this policy can still be salvaged. When you look at some of the gains he goes on to list, do you think that he's found himself in a really tight situation?
Yes, that is a very brilliant question you have just asked. The Council of State had a meeting with the president, I think that was last week, after which there was a newspaper report of what they said. They advised, like, if the central bank cannot make the new money available, that they should allow the old notes to circulate alongside with the new note until there is clearly a sufficiency of the new currency in circulation. That is what I understand they say, and then nobody has contradicted it. Now, if you have consulted with them and they advise that if there is no sufficient new currency, that the old one should continue to remain a legal tender until the problem is sorted out. The problem now is as this problem is. Now, if the president says in compliance with rule of law, we are now allowing only 200 Naira to be in circulation, was that the judgment of the Supreme Court? What did the Supreme Court say? Supreme Court original jurisdiction is not something that is invoked, in such a small manner. It is a serious matter that the Supreme Court will have original jurisdiction if there is any dispute between states and the federation, and there is extent of legal right or privilege that is in question. Now, these people have come before the Supreme Court, and as I said earlier, the first thing the Supreme Court would have decided and will decide is whether it has the original jurisdiction in the matter, and then go and look into the merit if it feels that it has that particular jurisdiction. It's a legal process. So I would have thought that the president would have allowed this legal process to probably come to an end before making this pronouncement, terminating that proceeding, because I don't see it's no longer a live issue. This is no longer going to be a live issue before the Supreme Court on Wednesday, because we are saying that you want the old note of 500 and 1,000 to cease to be a legal tender. That is contrary to the express injunction that was granted by the Supreme Court, asking that the particular deadline that was 10th of February should not in any way happen. It should be allowed until the Supreme Court determines the matter on merit. Now, what you have done now is that you have actually neglected that particular order. Now to allow only 200. So I don't know how you want to understand that speech, Maope. The speech of the president is clearly at variance with the interim order that the Supreme Court has granted. And what the president has done today is that he has actually overruled the Supreme Court. I'm no longer comfortable because that matter will no longer be a live issue. And I would have loved a situation where the Supreme Court would have actually taken a decision, one way or the other, whether it has jurisdiction, and decide whether this matter is matter that he can actually decide on his merit. I would have loved that process since we are practicing democracy to go his way. But the president has come up, and maybe he has more security knowledge, in terms of what will happen if this is allowed, because I keep on hearing about politics, that this is to allow some level of sanity on the electoral process so that people cannot buy vote. But my problem with that is that this system has impoverished the people the more. The people will become desperate that instead of maybe 5,000, I'm only joking now, they used to collect. They may even go for those who have no morality, go for 500 because they have created some level of hardship. They have become more susceptible, to accepting even lower currency because of the fact that there is no money for them to even spend.
Right.
Anything that can go. That is the problem with this particular, system we are operating now, because you have impoverished the people the more. The people are already.
All right, Mr. Bani.
The people are suffering.
Yeah, just a minute. Let me bring it back to the studio for a moment. Well, Mr. King, how does this play out for you? You have to go about your campaigns. You have to ensure you steady the ship, and then you hear the speech by the president. What's going on in the banks? Is the CBN going to make further comments? How are you processing all of this as you move on?
Well, as Mark said, he just only announced it now, but the 200. Well, maybe because I'm at the grassroots. My problem with the whole policy is not the policy itself, it's the implementation. People, when Central Bank created the policy, they gave a limit that we're allowed to take weekly. So why don't they go ahead and give that to us? That limit is not enough for vote buying. So it's not giving us any money at all. That's the problem. But maybe with the 200 Naira notes in circulation, they may now start giving us the 20,000 Naira in 200 Naira notes. And the truth of the matter is the masses are only just looking for a little bit of money. Today when I was coming to you, I have a little cash that I mize, but because I was panicking because my driver didn't know the road, I got an Okada man, and I looked, and all I had was 500 Naira, and he only took me just from Asokoro, really nearby. So everybody like, madam, you're going to give him 5. I said, I don't have anything else. He can have it. And the man looked shocked when I gave him the 500 Naira note. You'd have thought it was big money. So that is the problem. On the streets, I go around now with practically zero money. I can't even buy like I see something on the road and I say, oh, why don't we buy some corn and eat as we go along? And it's like, no money. We can't buy corn because you can't transfer to the woman who is grilling corn on the street corner. So the average person is really, really suffering. But by the same token, I agree with the policy in principle.
Yeah, do you think now, because some people will say that perhaps that's why it is the 200 Naira note that has, the old 200 Naira note that has been reapproved for circulation. Because if it is really about the vulnerable people, because there is that big dichotomy. I mean, the president is mentioning unscrupulous bank officials who have, tried to mess up the implementation of the policy. So some people will say if it's really about the vulnerable and not the big men, the politicians who are trying to hoard money, then perhaps the release of 200 Naira notes, back into circulation, the old 200 Naira notes, should help ease the burden that, the vulnerable in society feel.
Yes, I think it should. But I noticed something. After most people return the money, getting back, even before the 10th, getting back money of any type, the old or the new, became difficult. But as you said, truly, if that is it, if it's just for the vulnerable, the 200 Naira will alleviate it.
All right, except that when these monies were withdrawn from circulation, they were not in CBN vault. Some of them have been permanently taken out of circulation. So
that's the truth.
Who knows what happens? And that's what we're wondering. Do we expect a statement from the CBN in terms of how to operationalize all of this one? Yes, it may have just been announced, but come on. We know they had a whimper of what was going to come. But let's go to our studios in Lagos. They've got questions for both of you as well. Go ahead, guys.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Let me begin with you, madam. So now that the president has made this pronouncement and 200 Naira note, as you said, is going to be back in circulation, is there any reference to what the CBN governor had said when he met with some foreign diplomats that things seem to be easing up a bit? Do you agree with him?
Are you able to hear that?
Madam, can you hear me now, madam?
I didn't hear me. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. So
slightly.
The CBN governor had said when he met some foreign nationals that, well, he gave some indices, some figures to them when he was talking to them and said, look, things seem to be easing out a little bit from what, as a result or as a consequence of the policy that they released. Do you agree with him?
That things are easing up?
Yes, a little bit.
I think we're just adjusting. I don't think that things are easing up. If at my level I find it difficult to get money, then I know that the masses are having a hard time. So not easing up yet. We're just, like everything else, we're trying to adjust to it.
But still sticking with you for a bit, how does it make you feel when you see that as a result of this policy, fellow Nigerians are, as some would say, exploiting other fellow Nigerians, creating what has now been termed Naira against the Naira parallel market? How does that make you feel?
You see, that is part of that has always been my problem. We all shout about leadership, 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 but then really, we're not any better, the people. We're not better than our leaders. The truth is that the people selling the money at the POS, everywhere they're trading in Naira, that we always cash in on every opportunity to oppress each other. And that is a serious problem that needs to be addressed going forward in the country. I understand that we've been also battered, that I'm not even sure. That can do one of two things: either make us kinder to each other or just make us uncaring. And it is making us uncaring of each other, because it is not the CBN that's doing that. It's not the president. We are the ones actually selling the money. And that is a problem.
Okay. Well, just one last one from me to you. We have young people, we have women, we have traders, and all of those different segments of the society. From your assessment, and you said, of course, you operate more in the grassroots, which segment of this society do you think are most affected by this policy that the president and the CBN governor should pay a little more attention to?
Well, I think every policy affects women the most. That is my opinion. Because with everything, women, either from the lack of it, women tend to be the ones who pay the highest price for everything that's not going right. That's the truth.
So, Bani, so now, I mean, you held a position.
They can find a way to manipulate.
Let me ask Dr. Obani this next question. Well, you have said, you know, I mean, what everyone believes, that the president, I mean, a number of people have been talking about that as well, that the president has looked the Supreme Court in the eye, so to speak. What should be the consequence of that action, and who should be enforcing that consequence?
Enforcing what, sorry?
What should be the consequence of what you say is the president looking the Supreme Court in the eye, and, as you said, overruling the Supreme Court? What should be the consequence of that, and who should be enforcing that consequence?
Ayo, when you are men, and I mean, when you are people in Abuja who are speaking to me, they were very audible, but I'm very surprised that two of us are in Lagos. I can barely hear what the question is all about. I don't know whether people from Abuja will help with what Ayo wants to find out from me. Please, Chamberlain, can you
Can you hear me now?
I'm not hearing Ayo at all. I don't know what the problem is.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
This is the first time I'm having issue with your technology.
Can you hear me now, Mr. Obadi, Dr.
Very sorry
Obadi?
about this.
Can you hear me now? Oh dear. All right, well, I guess we'll come back to you, Dr. Obani, but Bukola has some questions as well.
All right, I'll just have to take it to Mrs. Kingibe. Good morning, Mrs. Kingibe. You're not alone in the difficulties Nigerians are experiencing, which is why I'd like us to take a second look at Mr. President's, speech. He also blamed the banks, for unscrupulous elements, borrowing his words, to be working against this policy. But do you think that he's listening to all sides to the conversation here? We've had politicians come on our program to say that, the people that the policy is targeted at are not really affected because they are the own banks and they are friends of banks and of bank owners. And we've also seen videos, where packs of political parties are being distributed to the people, with money, the new currency inside those packs. So is the president listening to all sides of the conversation? And as a result, is his decision well informed?
Probably not. The decision, he's already brought out the policy, and I doubt that he's going to just withdraw it. But at the end of the day, I think that the president is only blaming the banks, but I think he really needs to put a lot of blame on CBN as well, which he's not, because CBN is the regulator of the banks, and something must have gone drastically wrong if it's only the banks that are giving out this money. I don't think that is so, because truthfully, the people who work for CBN also offer people money. So that being the case, it's everything. It's not just but that notwithstanding, the kind of money that is necessary for vote buying across the nation, I doubt that even the big politicians will be able to access that. They can access some, but I don't think they can access that kind of money. And that's my humble opinion. I may be naive, but that's what I think.
So I wonder if there's something in that speech that you're not hearing, and I refer to Barrister Obani's commentary yet again, which is asking, in addressing the implementation of the policy, how much has been released in circulation by the CBN. There really isn't any clarity on that. Do you think the president ought to have addressed that?
Yes, he should address that. Then that way we would know where is the money. If they tell us how much has been released and we know that it's enough for it to go around at the rate they're giving it to everybody, then it means the same thing that he was running away from has started happening, that a good proportion of the money released is not in circulation. It's being held by individuals or illegally.
And in relation to that...
yes, he needs to look at that. He hasn't told us.
Yes, and in relation to that, we hear the Kaduna governor, from what the papers are quoting today, saying that the printing company requires a year to print 1 trillion naira. If that is the case, well, the CBA, we don't know the Kaduna governor to be a banker, but if we can take his word to the bank, has this policy been well thought out?
When the policy was first released, I feel that if the president wanted to change the currency, he should have started much earlier. Truly, the time frame they gave for getting back the old notes and for us to transition into the new one, I felt that was actually too short. But they must have had some sort of a plan. At least I hope they did. So I'm waiting to see when this plan is going to kick in. And also, I'm hoping that if the focus of all of this is elections, maybe right after the elections, then a little bit more money will come into circulation. At least enough to ease the discomfort of the people.
All right, so as we wind down now, Mr. Obani, just a quick one. So now that this statement, this speech has been delivered by the president, and then the CBN is expected to operationalize all of this, is it clear enough, this speech, or do we expect any further directives, or at least the way this will be implemented by the CBN?
I think maybe the CBN will have to do some further clarification concerning what the president has just said this morning. That is my take. And then I want to say this: when people are blaming the POS agents, can we recall that there was a time POS people have been in operation and they never had issue of charging excess or exorbitant amount? I have a POS person that is very close to my office. And anytime I ask for money, say, if you see the process, or guy, if you see the process I undergo in order to get the little money I'm giving to you, I pay so much. So if you have not given them money and there is no arrangement to give POS money, it is very wrong for anyone now to make general statement condemning them and then begin to now blackmail them. No, or blackmail the banks. Let the central bank make it expressly clear that they have enough money and they have given the banks enough money. I speak to my bankers, and they keep on telling me they don't have any money, they don't have any cash in their vault. And so what are they going to give out to me? So you are pitching the bank against the populace, or making them, you are setting them up. You are not giving them enough. You are telling people that bankers are the one holding the money or creating some level of incoherence in the system. So I think the implementation, as I said earlier, is the problem. We are not against monetary policy that will actually reduce inflation, and then there will be a growth in our economy. We are happy for such thing to happen even at the twilight of this administration. But can they properly implement it so that there will be no suffering on the part of Nigeria? We are caring about Nigerians who are undergoing some harrowing experience in order to have their own money in the bank, and then in order for them to spend their money. So that is what we're complaining about. The implementation is absolutely poor, very, very poor, and it has occasioned hardship, and it shouldn't be if you have already thought out this program very well.
All right, then, Mr. Monday Obani, Chairman Speeder, former second vice president of the NBA, as well as Ireti Kingibe, who is a senatorial candidate for the Labour Party in the FCT. Thank you both for joining us on the program today.
Thank you for having us.
All right, we will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
The purported primary election was supervised by a team of military officers who masqueraded and as Democrat to frighten law-abiding party faithfuls. We are therefore passionately appealing to the national chairman of our great party, APC, Senator Dr. Abdullahi Adamu, the APC National Working Committee, and the presidential candidate of the party, Asuwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his running mate, Senator Kashim Shettima, to quickly wade into the matter with the view of righting the wrong and correct the seeming confusion before things go out of hand. Accordingly, the group hereby trod its funds weight at the recent change of baton, which showed the removal of the former chairman of the party, Barrister Ibrahim Tukul Esudi. In fact, it was one of our earlier prayers when we seek against the seeming injustice and illegality foisted on us in the last state APC congresses to elect officials of the party which were not held, while we assured of our unflinching support and loyalty to the leadership of the party at all times to deepen democracy and to ensure a resounding victory of the party in the forthcoming general elections.
Welcome back to the 2023 verdict, and as you've seen there, Chief Davis Abokete joins us next here today to talk about Taraba politics. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Good morning, listeners.
Well, first of all, this currency scenario that we're all grappling with, are you affected in any way by this?
Of course, when there is a major change in the currency of a country, like it's been done in Nigeria, it affects virtually everybody. There's nobody that is not affected. But
the impression out there is that it is you politicians that are causing this in the first place because you want to use it to buy votes. And that's why we're all here now.
I am sure that is an impression being held in many quarters. But the currency swap or the redesigning of the Naira is a very good program. It's a program that is meant to better the life of Nigerians ultimately at the end of the day.
But on paper, when they say, or as you say, is to improve the life of Nigerians. But speaking about vote buying, does this in any way affect what might happen on election day in terms of if anyone had any intention to buy votes?
Yeah, of course, you know, we are politicians, we are Nigerians, but the government has just not woken up to bring this policy into play without getting a lot of information. I'm sure they have a lot of reports as to politicians who have stockpiled cash, especially the 1,000 and the 500 denominations for the elections. So I'm sure this is meant to curtail vote buying.
Well, I wonder if every election will be doing this policy, because politicians will always have a thing or two. So who knows? But if this is it, please, well, I can't say we shouldn't have elections because we have to. People need cash. But now we're going to Taraba.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be a happy man now because you went to court and your prayers were granted, weren't they?
I'm a very happy man. I'm a very happy man that you can see from the smiles coming from my face. I went to court. I got judgment from the lower court. I lost at the appeal court, and ultimately the biggest and the highest court of the land gave me judgment, cancelling the purported primary that held in Taraba, or that was assumed to have held in Taraba. So I'm a happy person for that.
But some are not happy with you because they think that you want to play the spoiler. You want to ensure that the APC don't have any candidates for the governorship elections in Taraba.
Yeah, you see, the impression they are creating is that I don't want APC to field a candidate. That's a very wrong notion, completely wrong. I have been in this party for quite 6-7 years. I did a lot for the party, spent a lot of my hard-earned income on the party, and finally, this is happening. So how would somebody be assuming that I don't want anybody on the ballot? I want us to be on the ballot. If you listen to my interviews in the past, I've always pledged that we put our acts together and present a candidate. But I think sometimes the people that are very desperate just want us to have a candidate without going through the process of having a genuine candidate.
So they also said that when the primaries held and the candidates emerged, that you were supposed to at least sheath your swords and work with Senator Boacha. But they don't get the impression that you're doing that.
Now, until the correcting is done, you are aware of how the primaries held, the purported primaries held the second time, the rerun. The rerun that was...
You say it's purported now?
Yes. A rerun that was held, a sham that was held in the name of primaries. How can you drag military men, 7 trucks of military men, and then Buratai, the former chief of army staff, to go to Taraba, to go and hold a primaries that none of the candidates participated. 5 of us are in the race with him. When I say him, I mean Senator Emmanuel Boacha, or former Senator Emmanuel Boacha. How can you go and hold a primary that 5 out of the 6 contestants are not participating, and you are allocating votes to people?
Why are you calling him former senator?
Because he's a sacked senator. He's no more a senator in the Senate. You are aware that a court judgment is hanging on him. He was sacked as a senator, even though it is the general belief that once you're a senator, you're always a senator. Maybe he's bearing the name senator because he has been a senator in the past. But you know, currently, he's no more a senator. I'm sure you're aware of that judgment.
But Burta is not a military officer now. So when you say that, people think that, are you suggesting that he's coming in his capacity as what? Because he's in politics now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's part of the security architecture of the APC, and a highly respected person that was dragged into that sham that took place in the name of primaries. That's why we're bothered. Otherwise, him as a person, we've looked at him in the past as a very nice, gentle person, except that he's now meddling into things that will spoil his name. Otherwise, we have looked at him as a very refined military officer, but for this action that he took recently...
Why did you say they allocated votes? Is it because you didn't win or something?
We did not participate in an election. For goodness sake, how can somebody be given 5 votes? Senator Yusuf was given 5 votes. I was given 0 votes. for an election, or from an election that we didn't even participate in the first place. You are aware we had a conference, the 5 of us, his core contestants. We had a press conference in Yana Hotel, Yana Apartments, a day before the sham, they call primaries. And we're all very, blunt in the fact that we're not going to participate. And the reason why we're not participating were that the Supreme Court did not order for a rerun in the first place. Secondly, even if the Supreme Court had ordered for a rerun, there's a procedure for having an election. You don't just call contestants on the eve of an election and then tell them to go to Taraba and go and participate in an election that you had predetermined the results. You have drafted the list of delegates without consulting anybody. And usually, if it's a direct primaries, it is the entire party members that will line up against or behind the candidates. If it is indirect, you need to do a congress to select the delegates that will participate in the election. All those processes were not followed. On Thursday last week, we had just been informed by text messages that we should prepare to go for an election. And we felt it was an aberration, and we decided not to participate. And even with that, marks were awarded to some people. Like I said, Senator Yusuf got 5
marks.
votes. Yes, votes were allocated.
Like it's an exam. I mean, that's
Exactly.
how when you say marks were allocated, you assume or you think. But take us through. You've said that the Supreme Court did not order a rerun. What did the Supreme Court order?
Yeah, I have with me here even the judgment of the Supreme Court. If you watch what the Supreme Court...
A certified true copy?
I have certified true copy.
Okay.
Right here with me. What the Supreme Court does is, in the enrolled orders, you will see clearly if an election is ordered. If you see wherever there is a rerun of election, it will be ordered specifically by the Supreme Court. But I have the enrolled order with me here.
So does it mean that those who say that relief number 8 was granted were not correct?
Relief number 8 were granted. The relief number 8 were granted, completely granted. And relief 8 is very explicit. If you check, it delisted Emmanuel Boacha from participating. It delisted Emmanuel Boacha from participating in the primaries. It also delisted our party from even participating in the 2023 election. So how could such order by the highest court in the land be flouted by people?
Do you want to quickly read? I don't know. I know that the Supreme Court judgments are usually very lengthy, and if I'm going by the bulk of paper in your front there, but do you want to read specifically the parts that you make reference to when you say that is what the Supreme Court said, that it delisted your party even from participating in? Was that what you wanted?
Not
for your party
really,
not to participate in the election? Not
really that. I did not. I'm sure my lawyers did that deliberately because they know the APC might try to violate orders, as it were. I had an 11 relief that I looked for. Relief number 8 says that the first defendant shall forthwith delist the name of the second defendant and the third defendant, if submitted or accepted, from amongst the list of political parties and gubernatorial candidates, respectively, for the February 2023 general elections for the office of the governor of Taraba State. That is the order of the Federal High Court Jalingo that was upheld by the Supreme Court. So for goodness sake, how can somebody now go and arrange a sham and call it a primaries? How can you go and organize a primaries in spite of this relief that was awarded by the Supreme Court, that was initially granted by the Federal High Court Jalingo and then affirmed by the Supreme Court?
Have you brought it to the attention of your party that they are in contravention of a Supreme Court judgment?
I would put it to you clearly that I'm back to court again.
Again?
I have gone back to court.
What do you want this time?
I want the parties that have been involved in violating the Supreme Court judgment to be brought to book. I am filing, or let me say I've filed for contempt. Contempt of court order.
Against who?
Against all the parties that are involved. INEC, APC. against INEC and APC.
But the several...
And even Emmanuel Boacha.
Okay, but
because by the electoral law, because Emmanuel Boacha participated in violating a process in an election, by law he's not even supposed to participate. Even if there is an order for a rerun, Emmanuel Boacha was not supposed to participate by the current electoral.
We understand that several high-ranking persons in the party have reached out to you, asking you to let us work together on this one. But they say you just refuse to listen.
That is not true. It's a very big lie. If you watch my appearance in your studio here the last time, I am in the forefront of the party calling us and sitting us down to resolve these issues. They have done nothing to that. We've never been invited. You only have calls from individuals telling you that, you should shield your souls. How do you shield your souls? In the face of complete alienation. How can you shield your souls when people are doing the wrong thing?
So what did you tell those individuals that you wanted to be done?
Like I said, the 2 times I've appeared on your station here, I've told you that we want the party to call all of us together. Let's sit down and find a way to resolve this issue. By the way, how did this issue start? How have we gotten to where we got to today? Emmanuel Boacha joined us roughly about 100 days to the primaries. And like I said the last time, you are joining the party 100 days to primaries. You are meeting people that have been there working and sponsoring the party and funding the party. And then you came in, I'm repeating my words that I'm used to saying. You came in, you ignored everybody because you feel you have a connection in Abuja or that you have a deal with some people who have promised to give you a ticket. You need to work with the people you are meeting.
So is it true then that if Senator Boacha had changed his approach, you would have listened to him?
Chamberlain, I told you the last time I appeared here that if Boacha had, we've had instances, like in Benue State, where Otom came into PDP, consulted with those he met on ground, and won the election. What stops us from making him, supporting him? If he came in and was able to consult with the people he met on ground, he came in a style that we don't understand. You come into a party, you just, first, like I earlier said, you appeared in the presidency and you are given a flag. That was even a wrong foundation. You don't go and join party at the president's office. Yes, the president is the leader of this party, but you need to go to your ward and get registered, get your members at the ward to work with you, then come to your local government, come to the state level, then you come to the national. But he came straight to the national, went straight to the president, and I am sure it was a deceit that they handed him a flag that doesn't even mean anything to us at the end of the day.
What if people interpret your actions as disrespecting the party leader, the president, with all of this that you're doing?
No, the president is somebody that likes justice. He likes fairness and justice. I'm sure you're aware of his support for the case in Imo, where a similar thing happened. And Uba and Mogalu. I'm sure you are very conversant with that case.
There's Anambra.
That was Anambra. Oh. The president stood his ground and said the correct thing should be done. So we know we have a president who would insist that the correct thing be done at every point in time.
But the way the party machinery works, anything can happen. What if, at the end of the day, they just feel, look, Chief, we've done what we can, but you just refuse to listen to us, we will suspend you?
I am waiting for the day they will suspend me, if it's something they're contemplating. Once they do that, I will take the next line of action. So there are a lot of political parties. Let me land.
Go on, please.
We have a lot of political parties in Nigeria. I was in the PDP. I left the PDP in 2016 when I was driven away, 2015, or let me say 2014, towards the end of 2014, when the same group of people that are coming to try to displace us in APC came and displaced us in PDP. I left for SDP. I ran for governorship under SDP. And when we didn't make it through, in 2016, I came to the APC because I wanted a national party. How can we come and build a party. 6 years into building the party, somebody will come from the same PDP that were chased away to chase us from a party we have built. That is where we are having the issues. And we are saying, I will not leave the party. They are saying we are working for other parties. We are never working for any party. We are working for ourselves. I will remain in this party until the day they tell me you are suspended or you have been sent away. Then I will know the next line of action to take. Of course, you know, there are many parties that are coming up. They are growing very fast. We have the SDP doing a lot of wonders in Taraba. We have Labour Party doing wonders in Taraba. We have NNPP doing wonders in Taraba. And then you have where I left, even though it's never my intention, and I don't think I will go back to the PDP, except if some other miracles happen. I can decide to go to any party. And I'm going to go with a chunk of my supporters.
So right now, even if the dispute within your party, that's the APC, is resolved, it doesn't seem that the APC will have a candidate for the 2023 elections.
As it is today, we don't have a candidate. I was even shocked yesterday that my friend appeared, my friend Senator Butcher appeared in TVC, and they were even referring to him as the candidate of the party. I mean, you go to the INEC portal and see whether his name is there. He can never be. Because in the first place, the Supreme Court did not order for a rerun. So what he did was, it was a social gathering they did. And just maybe those who collected his money want to impress him. They took him there, took military people, went into a place. They were even chased away in 2 earlier venues before they got a third hotel, went into the hotel to do what they did and declare results that were being shown everywhere. And let me correct you. I'm saying my name as a former aspirant. I'm not a former aspirant. I'm a current aspirant. I'm still in the race.
But you say that there's no primaries. Aspirant to what now?
Yeah, maybe the Supreme Court, we still have a judgment that is pending. I'm sure you're aware, Senator Yusuf's
So to that extent, well, you're not aspiring yet until that judgment is through, isn't it?
Now, when you are aspiring, it means you are in the line. So I'm seeing the line. And for now, I must be honest with you, we don't have a candidate in the APC in Taraba. We don't have a candidate. If we have a candidate, let the candidate go and even do a rally in his local government.
Is it still possible for you to get a candidate before the governorship election?
It is still possible because we still have a pending Supreme Court judgment.
Which one, for Senator Yusuf?
For Senator Yusuf. And we expect the judgment out today or in the next few days. And I can still apply to Supreme Court for even the review of my judgment, because by my judgment, we are not even supposed to participate in the election. And I think my lawyers, like I earlier said, did that deliberately because they knew APC might violate the instructions. And that's why they tried to delist even the party from the election. So for me, the issue can still be resolved. We still have about 20-something days to the election. If the party decides to call us today and say, look, let's push for review of the judgment so that we can lift that relief aid that was granted by the Supreme Court and have a consensus and have a candidate. Have one of us, maybe 2 consensus. We will all be willing to go in for the elections. And it's still possible because Tarabans are, like I kept saying, the APC is a very strong ground in Taraba. We have built a very strong party.
But you have heard them say you're working for the PDP as well.
That is what they keep saying. How can somebody who was in the PDP, this same group of people came and displaced us and drove us away. We came and built another party. And you left the party 100 days, only 100 days to the primaries. We're even suspecting maybe he's on a sponsorship of the PDP to come and disrupt what we are doing in the APC. That is part of what we are thinking. How can somebody say that? We are working for the PDP. When you left the PDP, you participated in the PDP government for 7.5 years.
Right.
And then you suddenly come to a new party and you are telling those who met on ground that they are working for PDP. How can I work for PDP?
All right.
What has PDP got to give me?
We've got the questions for you from Lagos.
Yes, thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Kente, your resolve is unmistakable, and you've referred a lot to paragraph 8 in the certified true copy of the Supreme Court judgment. And you say that your lawyers deliberately sought that prayer. If that was one of the prayers you sought, isn't it counterproductive to the aspiration of your party, the All Progressives Congress? And if that was to compel, in your own words, APC to well, I'm not quite sure how you put it now, because you think that the APC may disobey the Supreme Court judgment. If that is the case, if your prayers in that regard had been granted, which platform would you now present, pursue your aspiration under?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, my lawyers drafted these reliefs that I went to look for in the Federal High Court Jalingo with very good intentions. And as it is now, the candidature of Boacha has been delisted, and our party, unfortunately, has also been delisted. That has not been my intention up initial. But like I earlier said, our party, maybe my lawyers have this feeling that the party, and to be honest with you, the party has actually not listened to the voice of reasoning. Our party has gone ahead to give an order for a sham, for a social gathering to be held in the name of a primaries. So that now makes me, initially I was a bit offended with my lawyers on that particular relief that I got. But ultimately I became happy, because if that relief had not been granted, our party would have gone ahead to do what they're planning to do. We don't know the pact they have between them and Senator Emmanuel Boacha, but it's very unfortunate. Back to the question, I am a politician. I vie for governorship 2 times. This is my 3rd attempt. And it's my sincere hope that I should be given the opportunity to run. But I must run through a due process. It must be through a very, very, good process. It shouldn't be through the window. So if at the end of the day I don't have any platform to run on, or ultimately supporting the party ends up suspending me, I'll look for where I'll go and go and run in the coming elections. But for now, we're in the party, we're working for the party. We have a presidential election. Asuwaju is our presidential candidate. He's pushing very well. We have candidates for Senate. I'm sure you know we have won 2 cases for the Senate. The Senate seats were all taken from us. But by the grace of God, we got 2 of the Senate seats back. Senator Sani Danladi got his ticket back, and David Jimkuta got his ticket back for Southern Taraba. So I think we are on course, and we have some other cases that we have also won. So we are working for the party, and we are ensuring that we win the other positions. Even if we don't have a gubernatorial a candidate, we should be able to win the other elections.
Well, sounds like, throwing away the baby with the bathwater when you say that you must be allowed to run, and if not, you'll find other platforms for expression. But the agitation of you alongside Senator Yusuf is that Senator Boacha, is a new entrant to the party, and you're curious as to why the leadership of your party is supporting him. But then again, Senator Yusuf also has his own case at the court, which you referred to. So it would seem as if there is no unity of purpose, even with the quote-unquote respected leaders of the party in your state, that is you and Senator Yusuf. It seems like you're working at cross purposes with all of these court cases.
Let me be very honest with you that this party never had any issue. We never had any major issue until the entrance of these hijackers who came in and did what they did. We never had any party. We had very good working relationship amongst the 6 of us that ran for governorship. The 6 of us, we are consulting with each other, and we are assuring ourselves that whoever emerges, we will support until these people were sponsored from PDP to come and disrupt a process that we had started and that we are on course. It's very unfortunate, but I must be honest with you that our National Secretariat ought to have seen this coming. Because if you want to join a political party, you should come to the party You make hay while the sun is still shining. You don't come to a party towards an election. It means you came only to come and contest for a position. You are not coming to run, you are not coming for the interest of the party. That is my thinking. So it's a very unfortunate event. I'm highly pained that having spent 7 years building a party, somebody comes overnight and crashes whatever we have done. It's a very painful thing. And the opportunity we have at the moment, I don't know when we will have that opportunity to take over leadership from the PDP in Taraba. It's a very unfortunate event, and we are all pained. I'm sure a lot of people will think we are happy. We are happy winning the cases in courts, but without us running for the governorship in the state, it's a very painful situation for us.
But even if, by the way, some of those cases are still in court, they want to say you've gotten back, including Southern Taraba as well, they've still gone back to court to challenge it, but probably they want to get to the highest level until you can then say, yes, we have it back. But even if you were able to sort all of this and you eventually have a candidate, don't you think all of this will affect your chances at the polls? Because if the other parties are already gotten their candidates, they're campaigning, they're steps ahead, this will affect the party, wouldn't it?
It will, Chamberlain. Let me be very honest with you. We thought with the Supreme Court judgment, we had reached the promised land. With that judgment, a normal group of people will sit down and do an appraisal and then take the next workable step. But you can see even with the Supreme Court judgment, you see the way they have gone. They violated the judgment. They went and set up that social gathering they call primaries and did what they have done. Dragged a very senior respected military officer into the sham. And I'm sure as I speak to you, even the military officers that went, because out of the 7 candidates, people that went for the sham gathering, the social gathering, 7 were military men. Retired generals, Lieutenant General Deoshu, and people like that were all dragged into that thing that happened. And at the end of the day, some of them who have taken their time to read my relief aid, as granted by the Supreme Court, are feeling very ashamed to have even participated. That's why the sham or the social gathering took place a week ago. It is 7 days today, and they've not been able to upload the name of anybody, because I'm sure they are feeling very bad that it happened that way.
Have you reached out to the party chairman?
If you listen to our press release, which I have a copy here, at the end of the day, maybe I will drop one with you. If you listen to the contents of our press release, there seemed to be a pact, the continuation of the pact in the Senate that was to produce Lawal and all those things they did in the Senate. I think there must be a pact between the national chairman of our party. He's a highly respected statesman. There must be a pact between him and Emmanuel Boacha. Maybe during the power sharing in the Senate, they allocated Taraba to him, to Boacha. But they allocated Taraba to a wrong person.
Does that mean you haven't reached out to him?
We have had a couple of meetings from the beginning of the crisis. But each time we go there, each time we meet with him, his outburst has been, very, very destructive. I've never seen a party leader, even though, like I complained the last time, there are fairly new people in the leadership of the party. APC has always made this mistake of bringing in new leadership during election. If you have a leadership that has been on ground during the building of the party, towards the election, the leadership will know who has done what, who has helped the party, and they will take decisions based on the best practices. Well, but as you know, APC is used to changing leadership towards election period. And these people are very strange, very new people. They may not have a grasp of what happens at the grassroots or at the state level. On
the statement you made about Senator Lawan and the likes, are you saying that there are people in your party who think that what happened was a pact, an allocation, or manipulation of sorts?
I am a party member. I'm a very strong member of the APC. So what is happening is a sign that there was actually a pact, except that the pact got broken when the first shot went wrong. When the first shot went wrong.
What was the first shot?
The first shot was to present Lawal as a presidential candidate. When it didn't work, the other cards started falling apart. I'm sure it's the aftermath of that pact that we're still having at the moment.
To what extent can we still say that it is a pact when the Supreme Court took a decision on the matter?
Yeah, if it is not a pact, after the Supreme Court judgment, everybody was supposed to have come to the drawing table. Everybody was supposed to have taken a new stand to ensure that we don't go the way we are going. And you can see, again, our presidential rally has been postponed 3 times.
The one in Taraba?
Yes, the one in Taraba. 3 times. And in the last timetable that just came out, we may end up not even having the presidential candidate to visit us as a result of what they have done.
Does it mean you will lose Taraba?
I'm not saying we will lose Taraba. I'm not saying, mind you, in 2019, even though we didn't win the gubernatorial election, the president got over 320-something thousand votes in Taraba. Buhari got over 320-something thousand votes in Taraba. And if you compare the states in the Northeast, I think the performance in Taraba was even the best, even though we didn't win the governorship.
But that was...
So we're still sure we can do well.
No, but you didn't have this crisis at the time.
Yeah, we had little crises then, but we were able to resolve those crises. We had crises with our late sister, Mama Taraba, at that time. But at the end of the day, Buhari won the election, 320-something thousand votes. And the governor even won his election with 320-something thousand votes too.
But now it's different.
But now our party at the national level is managing the entire process. If by the time they present Emmanuel Bocha, we might not even get 25% of the votes that is required in Taraba.
Why is that? He says that he will deliver, he will win the elections in the state, as politicians always say.
Chamberlain, the gentleman appeared and told you God told him he would be a governor. And he went further to say so many things. And when he lost at the Supreme Court, he's trying to force God to accept his own verdict by going to do this sham. And for goodness sake, you are a candidate of the party. You have not been able to go to even your own local government to organize a rally. Even in his own local government, he has not been able to organize a rally. He goes to Taraba with very large number of security men and ends up staying within his house without even going out. How can you say you are acceptable to the people? I don't think it's acceptable to Tarabans. Tarabans are not as cheap as people think.
Oh.
I'm just wondering what the way forward is right now, because, I mean, you say that first there is another Supreme Court verdict pending.
Yeah. Yes.
I think that's coming up today.
Today.
So you're also expecting that the party will invite yourself and all the other contending members. But in the event that that doesn't happen, will you go ahead and campaign for your party anyway?
Yes, we are already doing that. I think it was on your news of the campaign, a campaign I sponsored and organized for Asiwaju Shettima. And I tasked my colleagues and my friends, and we sponsored that campaign. It was a very big campaign we did in Southern Taraba. We tagged it Zona Rally for Tinubu Shettima 2023. I led that campaign, and we did very well.
How effective are those types of campaigns? I mean, because oftentimes when political parties do that, those types of campaigns, they think, oh, look, this is what we did, and everybody can see it. But do those kinds of campaigns, do they really influence how people? Because as you said, other parties are coming up. Labour Party is coming up, NNPP is coming up, and they don't seem to favor those types of big rallies as they do more community engagement. Can you convince them that in spite of what is going on within your party at the state level, that your party is still the party to field for the presidential elections?
I earlier told you that in 2019, Buhari won the election with over 320-something thousand votes, while the governor from the PDP, also won this election with 300-something thousand votes. That goes to show you the strength of APC in Taraba. We are campaigning. We are getting more people to support Asiwaju and Shetima at that level. We now have 2 court cases, like I said, that we have won. I am already on my way to Taraba to go and campaign for my senatorial candidate because the hijackers that came, we got back the Senate seat for Southern Taraba. So we need to go and campaign for the young man. And he has the capacity and the capability to win the election. So I wouldn't say that because we're having crisis, do you just, because there is no Naira in circulation, you will stop eating? We have to campaign and continue to survive in the midst of the situation we find ourselves.
So, and yourself and Senator Yusuf are not exactly on the same page, are you?
We are party men. We are on the same page because we've been talking to ourselves. And for us who have said, if any one of us emerges, we will support each other.
Any one of what? Either you or him?
No, any of the 5 of us that are remaining. Oh. 1 left to NMPP. Any of the 5 of us that remain, apart from Senator Emmanuel Boacha, would campaign for such a person.
So even if he, because the grounds you said you had against him was that he didn't carry you people along, he didn't consult with the people that he met on the ground. So if he decides to consult with you now and is the person who eventually emerges, he won't get your support.
How will he emerge when the law even bars him from contesting? The 2022 electoral law is very specific. Once you participate in thwarting a due process in an election, like they have done in the governorship primary election, once you have participated and it has been found that you really thwarted the efforts or tampered with the processes leading to a free and fair election, the law bars you from participating in subsequent elections. That I'm also considering going back to court. It's a criminal offense that attracts 2 years imprisonment without even an option of fine. So instead of becoming a governor, he might end up in prison if time is not taken, because I am going to push and prove to Nigerians that he thwarted and derailed a process, a very good process that we have started. That is possible.
So as we wind down on this one, when you accuse him of having or seeming to have had a pact, as it were, from Abuja, when you left Abuja yourself and went to Taraba, didn't you have some agreement with some leaders that, yes, we will support you as you go for the elections?
Which leaders?
High-ranking members of your party.
We are the leaders of the party. In my senatorial district, I am one of the most senior officers of the party in my own senatorial district. But I did the enrollment. I did the membership drive.
You did not consult with anybody before
we did. We have quite a lot of elders. We have generals. We have former senators whom we are working with. We consult amongst ourselves. We consult amongst ourselves, and most of the things you hear me say here is a consensus amongst all of us. We have former senators who are professors. We have former generals, very senior to Barate, who are members of our community, Southern Taraba. And we've been consulting with them. Oh. And it's through our common efforts and joint efforts that we're able to even push through the judgment we got for the Senate seat.
Okay, so just in case you missed it, what is it that you want to be done so that the APC can have a candidate in Taraba?
I told you earlier that there are only 2 ways. We're expecting the next judgment and Supreme Court judgment on Senator Yusuf's case. I asked for 11 reliefs and 8 were granted. Some of my reliefs were not granted. I'm sure what the Supreme Court will do is to grant more reliefs in addition to the ones I have gotten. Because, of course, they will not grant any relief against the ones they've granted. They can't grant a counter relief against the ones they've already granted. So we expect them to grant more reliefs. In granting those reliefs, we might have a leeway. Otherwise, my lawyers have advised Another way out of it for us to have a legitimate candidate is for us to write for a review of my judgment. I can write for review of my judgment.
What if party leaders, including the national chairman, alongside several senior persons and the professors you spoke about, called you and said, listen, we are in the situation here. We have to have a candidate. And they appeal to you, for whatever reason, to step down. Would you do it?
I can, but what will you do with the judgment? Unless the Supreme Court reviews its judgment. Otherwise, the judgment is very emphatic.
You can withdraw the case from the courts. If they appeal to you, you can withdraw the case. Your lawyers are acting on your directive.
I don't understand what you mean by withdrawing the case.
If they appeal to you, that we have to have a candidate. And of course, one of the conditions is you withdraw your case from court.
Even if I withdraw, I have 2 cases that I've just filed yesterday. Contempt of a Supreme Court judgment and another case. I still have 2 cases that are pending. The case of altering a process of an election, which is in the 2022 electoral law. Those cases are aftermath of the non-implementation of the judgment of the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court, as it is now, has barred us, Taraba, from participating in the 2023 Taraba APC, from participating in the 2023 governorship election.
Which benefits the PDP and other parties?
Not really. Yes, it benefits the other parties, if you want to say it that way. But like I said, we still have a leeway. And the leeway is for us Chamberlain, is to ask for review, which can be done if the party calls us and puts us together. The party is avoiding that.
Okay, Chief Davis Abokente, he says he's not former, but he is vying for the APC, even though he says they barred no candidates. So that's how confusing it can be sometimes. But thank you for coming on, and all the best.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So we will talk about the elections next. Should we be concerned about security for the elections? What should we be concerned about? How should we approach it? These and more are some of the issues we'll highlight in just a moment. Stay with us.
I'm also pleased to observe that the young men and women who display these qualities are joining the service at a time our dear nation requires such traits, particularly from members of the armed forces, to effectively combat diverse security challenges across the country. In a few days from today, the 2023 general election will take place all over the nation, and some of you may be deployed to support as part of the military aid to civil authority. You must be professional and avoid acts that will bring the armed forces to district.
The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, receives in audience members of the West African Elders Forum, led by former President of Sierra Leone, Mr. Ernest Koromo. The delegation is on a pre-election mediation visit to the Commission, as the head of the forum underscores the importance of Nigeria conducting peaceful and credible elections next year.
We know the challenges that we are now confronted with in the sub-region. We don't want the gains that we have made as a region to be reversed. And what are the signals that we are now experiencing are not too good. It makes it all the more important for us to fully engage and stay engaged with the process.
Earlier in the day, the INEC chairman also received members of the United Nations office in West Africa and the Sahel, who visited the commission to assess preparations for the 2023 general elections.
The whole West Africa region is going through some kind of turmoil, And there is still a lot to do in terms of deepening democracy across the region, including actually democratic and governance.
In both meetings, the INEC chairman assures the delegation of his determination to conduct what he says will be the best elections in the history of Nigeria. However, he has some concerns.
There is a major area of concern, which is the prevailing insecurity, not only in Nigeria, but in other countries in the sub-region as well. In less than 2 weeks, 3 of our local government offices were attacked across the country, bringing the total number of such attacks to 7 in the last 4 months. While we want to reassure Nigerians that we will recover from these attacks and the election will proceed as scheduled, we would like to appeal to all citizens to see the Commission's facilities as national asset.
INEC has witnessed 7 attacks on its facilities in the last 4 months alone. The Commission says while it can recover from these attacks before the elections begin next year, there is a need for security agencies and communities where these offices are sited to prioritize the security of these facilities. All right, welcome back. Yes, those 2 gentlemen joined us here in the studios to weigh in on security ahead of the elections. Onyekachi Adekoya, security consultant, CEO, PR24 Risk Management Consulting, and sitting right beside him is Hamzat Lawal, Chief Executive Officer, Connected Development Co. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
I know you've been doing, both of you, doing some looking into the security scenario in the country. INEC says prevailing concerns. Let me start with you, Mr. Lawal. How concerned should we be at all?
We should be very concerned as we go into the polls. For us at Connected Development, we have already started observing the elections because election for us is not on election day. There are pre-election assessment and observation that usually we deploy, and then election day and post-election observation. And from our data, which we deployed observers since June 2022, close to 30 attacks on INEC facility across the country, but more prevalent in the southeast of the country. So we should be worried because without adequate security, elections cannot hold. And I think sometimes we forget about the trends with 2 previous elections. When you look at 2015 and 2019, elections were postponed because in 2015, it was hampered on insecurity. In 2019, it was logistics. So as we go into 2023, and we've seen a spike in insecurity, but particularly our data is showing that now politicians have armed thugs. So now what's prevalent is the ammunition of thugs and giving them substance so that they can undertake some of this attack to their political opponent or even at government facilities like INEC. And this should be worrisome to electorate, but most particularly to security agencies, because this is testing, how they can overcome this and respond adequately in good time.
Mr. Adekoya, what have you found?
I think same with what Hamza said. The issues are just the same. Our election cycle typically experiences violence like this. And based on data, we're now approaching the peak of the period, which is now between this period in February to second week in March. If you look at all the issues of insecurity we've been having, with all the states we are in currently, we have not reached the peak of insecurity because as we get closer to the elections and on election day itself, you will see the rise. Based on data itself, we've had over 3,422 incidents of violence, political-related violence. The data from ACLED is there. From my own perspective, we had analyzed and said that cyclically, man is a creature of habit. So history will repeat itself.
Despite all the right speaking from the government security forces, we have not seen the height of the insecurity yet, sadly.
Okay, let me ask you about what we saw yesterday, you know, in some states over this protest for over Naira scarcity. I'm wondering what you made of it as a security expert. Do you think that was something that was spontaneous? Was it planned? How did it come across to you? Was it really a kettle waiting to boil over?
I think that something holds Nigeria together, some invisible force, because other climes would not go through what we are going through and still be a bit temperate as we are. I mean, cast your minds back even till this morning. There are people, there are queues at the banking halls. The network is overloaded. The financial system is stressed currently. Now, we then have a lot of failed transactions, and people have their money stuck, and the banks cannot open. So the pressure for the masses is two-pronged. You have a lot of failed transactions. People who have, 50,000 in their account, and you have 3 failed 10,000 transactions, for example. The banks are facing the brunt from the central bank, from the state governors, from the customers themselves. The bank can't open. The people don't care about this whole thing with the central bank, the politicians, the governors. They just want access to their cash. People are denied access to cash for over 3 weeks, going on 1 month now. It's difficult for people. So, yeah, we've seen Edo, we've seen Oyo, we've seen Delta, we've seen skirmishes in Lagos, we've seen skirmishes in Ogun, in other parts of the country, and Kwara. And it's dangerous, really, because it's not like the economy was faring any better. You then layer on that suffering insecurity, you then layer on that suffering lack of access to cash. I mean, this is national TV. People just have to be a bit more sensitive, okay? You don't have the 1,000, you don't have the 500 Naira notes, no problem. Where are the 100 Naira notes?
We're about to have the 200, probably.
I'm just asking, if I had in my wallet now 100 Naira, 20 pieces, I'll be fine, I'll feel comfortable. You can pay for some things. We have, for example, operatives across the country. It's difficult to get to work. So there's a lot of pressure. You know, and maybe the statement by the president this morning has bought the federal government some time, by my assessment. But by Monday, when people go to the banks and they can't see the 200 Naira notes, you know, they just know that there's still more problems. So there is something there that the government has to take very, 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 very seriously. That said, I understand that there are the issues there, but people don't care. They just want access to their cash. So it's a dangerous situation from my assessment.
But Hamza, what kind of indicators did you see? Because many would have thought probably we don't know what kind of impact that statement will have. And then the enthusiasm that people had for this election and probably still have as a result of introduction of technology, has it dampened the psychological makeup, all of what's happening now?
No, the enthusiasm is still there. People are still excited and they want to go cast their ballot. But our fears and the worries and concern we're getting is that a lot of people are scared because there's no certainty in this policy and they don't know what way it will sway. Right now, it's as if the Apex Court is holding us to ransom and we don't know where they would tilt to. But the feelers we're also getting on the field is people don't have or cannot access money. And before now, we've done a lot of campaign on vote buying. Even the last time we spoke was around money politics. But you see now, a lot of people are now saying, you know what, I think I would have to transact my vote on election day. Because 5,000 Naira now will go a long way to anyone. So just imagine the impact and implication that this has on our elections.
Are they more prone?
Oh yes, they're vulnerable now.
To vote buying?
Yes, now they're vulnerable. People are vulnerable. 5,000 Naira will go a long way. In short, 1,000 Naira would actually go a long way. So the feelers we're getting on the field is from even people who had said, you know, they would not sell their vote. Now they're saying, you know what, we're going to go out and look for people who will
But can we be certain that politicians have this money to buy votes on the day? If everybody is cash-strapped, do we assume that they may or may not be cash-strapped? How do we approach that kind of scenario?
Well, we've seen reports that politicians are mopping up the new Naira notes. You know,
dear.
We've had reports even from the Apex Bank, you know, that politicians are mopping up this money. So again, I think that we need to do much more on our intelligence gathering, but most importantly, how do we respond when we get some of this intelligence on the ground and on the field? See, even INEC have complained that they need cash for these elections. Because come to think of it, there are drivers working under the National Union of Road Transport Workers. They don't have account number. How do you mobilize those people? You say you want to do transfer. To which account? How? So we are a cash economy, and let's not shy away from it. Yes, we all agree this policy is great, but you need to set timelines. And then you need to also ensure that at least we have enough cash backing to cushion this effect.
Yeah, but Mr. Adeko, does it vary from zone to zone, this kind of concerns? Or is it a, general fear about how to approach elections? Because there are some who think that some areas may have some sort of cash or something, and others may not be as apprehensive as some others may be. Who knows?
No, this cuts across, and I think that in a policy environment, what is happening is that the federal government is trying to do too much at the same time. This election has its own dynamics. It's the first time in a long time that technology will be center stage. It's been coming, so we're there now with the beavers. It's the first time in a long time you're seeing massive youth involvement. So that in itself has changed the dynamics in terms of the expectation of the voters. It's the first time in a long time we're having 3 major candidates on the ballot. Before it was a 2-horse race. Now you have the third force, which has been coming with a clear path to victory. So the dynamics have also changed. We've seen the first time in a long time also a fairly or quasi-independent INEC. Okay, so the INEC is being given the leeway to do what it has to do. Now, the fact the president wants to, at the same time, maybe have like a free, fair election, but he's doing so much at the same time. So when you layer all the firsts and the changes that we have, you then put the cash problem. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in the north. I'm off to Maiduguri very soon.
Okay.
It's in the northwest. It's in the north central. It's in the southeast. Then you have the insurgency and the insecurity that we have. So people are caught in between so many dynamics at this time. What I would have thought the federal government would have done was to dial back a bit, allow the new initiatives from INEC to be center stage, and, we deal with the issue of insecurity. The cash dynamics is quite dangerous. I don't know what the data is saying. I don't think people are particularly keen now on even voting because people are frustrated.
Wow. All right, let's get to our colleagues in Lagos. I know they have talked about how they have got their PVC on the day, so they might still be very enthusiastic about all of this. Guys?
It's only that we need cash. But, we'll talk about that later. And talking about cash, let me come to you, Mr. Lawal. Just 2 days ago, after a meeting with the CBN previously, the INEC chairman came out at that consultative meeting with political parties that even though the CBN had said that they were going to get cash 10 days to the elections, there isn't, they don't have cash, according to INEC. How significant do you see that being in the build-up to the election, in the logistics, in the planning, in everything that INEC has to ensure that this election holds creditably?
Well, cash would significantly impact this election, or access to cash by INEC. And we hope that the CBN is able to pull through and provide this cash to INEC. But come to think of it again, it's just not only INEC that would need cash. What about security agencies? Even the security agents that have been deployed across Nigeria. I know for a fact that the men, the boots on the ground in the northeast, they give them their daily allowance in cash. And now they're cash trapped. God forbid we have military disobedience, in this part of the country, people who have put their lives on the line just to protect you and I. So money and cash particularly will play a significant role as we go into this election. And I hope that as INEC is reviewing, their electoral management deployment, I hope this would not be a concern that they would now have to, they would not have to maybe postpone the election or shift the election by some days or weeks. And this would impact the election. By the way, this is already impacting the elections as we speak. So, we can't afford to take this much as a country and as we try to transit in a democratic government.
Well, Mr. Lawal, the question is how impactful will it be? Thankfully, you also brought into the mix the angle of the security agencies themselves, saying they also do not have cash. And you rightly pointed out that the security agencies who will get the job done on election day, their business is done in cash. So does that in any way make this process vulnerable in any way, manner, shape, or form?
The process is already vulnerable. Today, INEC is cash trap. Security agencies are cash trap. Electoral stakeholders are cash trap. So the impact is there. And what this might likely become is a postponement of the elections. God forbid, and we hope this does not happen. And we've never seen a time where Nigerians have that level of trust to INEC. The perception around INEC right now is great because of the deployment of technology, but most importantly, how INEC is able to engage and how responsive they are. And we've seen them, taking cue from Ekiti and Osun election. There's that trust. But right now, we're losing grip of citizens' trust and support to the electoral process.
Even when some bankers also say they do not have that cash. But let me ask Mr. Adekoya this next question. You spoke to the impact of these pockets of protests in various parts of the South. And you've also said that this is really going to have its own effect. You've drawn parallels between our elections, the electioneering process, and the protests and everything that is happening. What do we need to do to arrest it? Because most of the time, these things begin, even after cash has been released into the fray, it takes a little while for tension to douse. We're 10 days or thereabout, less than 10 days to the elections. What do you see happening in the very shortest possible time that can give people enough trust and confidence to come out and vote without fear of any insecurity unleashed on them?
Well, I think that the parties to this whole brouhaha have pitched their position and it's quite solid. You have the Supreme Court's position, still made a pronouncement yesterday. You've had the president's pronouncement this morning, though the Supreme Court said maintain status quo. The CBN has been making statements, the bank are making statements, politicians are making statements. We're 9 days to the election. And even if we had all that we needed, we still would not have a completely flawless election. For example, we've increased the number of polling units to about 176,000. We've increased the total eligible voters by about 12 million something to 93 million now. So there's a lot of fares going into it, but we're not looking at logistics. Logistics, for example, INEC would have about 1.6 million or 1.5 million ad hoc staff. They have to be paid cash. The president has said increase the supply of 200 Naira. The cost of moving the 200 Naira to the banks is going to be very expensive. Imagine moving a bullion van with 200 Naira notes. You could move more with 1,000 or 500. So already there's a logistic challenge. INEC offices are being attacked. More may still be attacked. So there's the best outcome we can see will be a managed outcome. We should all manage our expectations, and hope for the best. But there's not much that can happen within the next 9 days to the general election. You can't flood the system with cash in 9 days. You can't even satisfy your customers. INEC in this instance, law enforcement. I mean, for law enforcement, for example, for 176,000 polling units, you need minimum 2 policemen unarmed in each of the polling units. We don't have today 300,000 policemen. what you need would be 352,000 by 176,000 polling units. You then need to man the borders. The borders will be shut down. You then need to have quick response teams at tactical positions at different parts of the country to ensure that there's quick response. We still don't even have all the numbers that we need. So I think the president may have to issue another statement to pacify Nigerians a bit and call for some more cooperation, because from what we are looking at, it does not look as though we have all that we need to have a flawless situation. It will be at best a managed outcome with pockets of issues here and there, but as we do in terms of statistical non-compliance or insignificance, the one or two pockets of areas may not necessarily mar the entire process. So I think that's a prognosis of what we're looking at in the near term.
Just one quick one from the country threat map, that has been drawn up. And I'm wondering how you situate that in the scheme of things. You said elections will occur amidst a high level of insecurity and the necessary conditions for unrest abound. One of it, of course, is this Naira thing. Now, in the light of the fact that a significant number of the unrest, protests we've heard about this Naira scarcity has been more from the south. And of course, thankfully, you said you're going to Maiduguri this morning. I'm wondering where you situate what could happen in the north and how to ensure things don't get bad already, because from the threat analysis, the country threat map that you have, it's worse both in the northwest and in the northeast.
To do certain things, to move some cash to the north to manage, because the penetration of banking is not very high in the north, so the CBN has taken some steps to ameliorate some of those concerns. The threat map is there. We've said already the elections will occur amidst high level of insecurity, so that's there. The bigger problem is the protest culture. Since NSAS, we've seen the protest appetite become very high. And due to law enforcement response was low, ab initio. The police has put out their new procurements to say they are ready. We have 774 local governments. The police are constrained. They can't effectively cover everywhere. So, the threat map is there. The concerns, again, are there. I mean, come back to what I'm saying again. Nigerians, we all have to manage our expectation. The federal government, the state government cannot ensure a successful outcome alone. The burden will fall more to the people to be there and ensure that we maybe collaborate, be a bit more patient with ourselves, understand that these issues are transient while we are hoping for the best. Okay, but if we look at the map and the statistics alone, prognosis is not looking very good.
We yet again refer to the country threat map. It will seem like the deployment of the higher numbers of deployment of CBN super agents, to the north compared to the south, may not necessarily address the problem of the possibility of violence. According to that country threat map, we have there parts of the northeast marked in red as having higher risk. We have also the north central marked in red and the north west as well marked in red. So besides the current upheaval, happening in the country right now due to the cash crunch, what are the other preconditions for electoral violence in these parts of the country?
Yeah, you need to look at the drivers of those risk factors in those areas. You have ISWAP, Boko Haram in the northeast. These issues are known. You have bandits and Ansaro, different armed criminal, transnational criminal groups in the north central. We have ISWAP rearing its head now in the north central, in parts of Kogi and Kwara. You have the unrest in the southeast, in the south-south, protest culture in the southwest. Those are the things driving what you see as a risk factors. In the Northeast, for example, some of the drivers of this coloration you're seeing is illegal vehicle checkpoints. So we need to separate the normal security issues that we have from the political violence. What would drive political violence would be, if you look at the SBM map for projection, where you have the states that will be keenly contested, what you think would be a fair walkover for states with incumbency, the gray areas where you have a lot of undecided voters. Those areas and the war of attrition, as it were, between political parties in a quest to, reduce the influence of opposition in their areas of strength and play up their own area of advantage. Those will be the major drivers of political violence this season. And like the then INEC chairman, Jega, said, if you see political violence in the country, look to the politicians. So again, the major event on the 25th would be the major driver, regardless of the cash crunch. The typical things will happen. But we're hoping that the strategies of the government security forces would work to abate some of these issues.
Is this bound to have an impact on voter turnout on election day? And, specifically, what percentage of voter turnout do you hope to see when you look at the numbers in voter registration this year? INEC has churned out over 90 million.
Yeah, I mean, just case in point would be like the Southeast. You look at the Anambra election. IPOB issued statement there will be no election, walked that back some days to the election. There's a certain Simon Ekpa that is also making similar statements. The impact on that on the Anambra election in 2021 was you had a 10.1% voter turnout. So, yes, the threat of violence increases the risk of voter apathy. It's there already. INEC already has said it cannot conduct polls in over 240 polling units, 240 out of 176,000. Maybe that's not particularly significant, but those are Nigerians that will be disenfranchised. Okay, there are places you can't move freely into, in the Northwest, in the Northeast. There are senators who will struggle to even go home freely and campaign. So clearly, it's a stated issue. It's almost a given. Insecurity will contribute to voter turnout, and generally we particularly don't have high numbers of voter turnout. So when you layer the cash constraint, the frustration, the economic issues, the fact that there's fuel scarcity, people cannot even travel. Cost of transportation is very high now. A lot of people travel back to their villages or their wards to vote. A lot of people may not be able to do that. So a number of factors, not just the issue of insecurity, the logistical constraints will impact on voter turnout, definitely. To what extent is yet to be seen.
Indeed, it is Hydra-headed. Let me now bring it to you, Mr. Hamzat. You spoke earlier also about, reports that politicians are arming thugs ahead of the polls. If we, tie that to the disposition of the Inspector General of Police, who says that they are doing everything that they can, and they're going after those who want to cause any form of unrest during the election. Is this in full cognizance of, some of these reports that abound about, the presence of, elements that want to cause some form of instability in the polls?
Oh, yes, it's from reports, and I'm sure from intelligence from his men. And I'll give a simple scenario. When you attend a political rally, you would see state actors, the police, civil defense, army, providing security. And in one corner, you'll see young men who have taken substance with arm, who are non-state actors, and they're just wearing black in one corner, also providing security to the politician. And most times, those are the men that the security would use to go and attack his opposition or whoever he deemed fits that it's a threat to his political career. So this is a typical scenario of what's currently happening on the ground when you follow this campaign of all of these politicians. But again, we've not seen stronger clampdown on people perpetrating these acts. The IG of police, we've not seen arrest. We've not seen interrogation. We've not seen prosecution. And the elections are just 9 days ago. I think we need to send a strong message. And the Nigerian police force who is the apex law enforcement agency, needs to send a strong message. And also particularly, the trends we're seeing are inciting statements. See, violence does not just erupt. There are build-up to what would trigger violence, and most of which are the statements by the political elites or the political party and their candidates or some of their spokesperson. It is really sad that a lot of them have not really conducted themselves well in public. Just day before yesterday, there was violence that erupted in Kano. Some of this report did not make it to headline news. But people are already being attacked, and some lives are being lost, by these attacks from statements or inciting statements from political parties and their candidates.
Now, Mr. Hamzat, it's a grim canvas, that you're painting. And if we also add the current cash crunch and the unrest being experienced in many parts of the country, do you sense a helplessness across the land in terms of insecurity? And as a result, should we be surprised if 48 hours there is an announcement that the elections have been postponed?
No, we shouldn't be surprised. There's that high-level apathy. People are already frustrated. There's hopelessness. And the sad reality is nobody's even telling us the truth. And I think that the elites have taken Nigeria for granted. The CBN is not telling us the truth. The federal government is not telling us the truth. Even the banks, the commercial banks, they've not come clear to tell us the truth. Some of them are speaking in parables. Come clear and even have respect and dignity for the Nigerian people and tell us what is the true state of things or affairs. And I think Nigerians are not asking for too much, and they will be happy to support their government. I wouldn't be surprised if these elections are postponed. And because, again, from our experience in 2019, I remember at that time we deployed 10,000 observers to the 36 states. I remember few hours to that election, it was postponed. We had to deploy 5,000 people to go and call back 10,000 people. Because, there are places in Nigeria where you don't have mobile network. So we need to send manpower. And you just imagine how much it will cost us to deploy 5,000 people. And I remember also, again, on the morning of that election that was postponed in 2019, our men were attacked on the ground because if you look at our tag as observers, there's INEC. So a lot of electorate thought were INEC, because we were the ones who broke the news to them that there's no elections today. It has been postponed. There was an announcement by INEC, 24 hours before that time. And they could not understand or process that information. And they started attacking us on the field that, we're trying to disenfranchise them. So, this is a very sensitive time. And with all the impacts from insecurity, from the lack of money in the economy, and even the frustration. Today, we're dealing with 30% unemployment rate. So people are already overstretched with inflation and other social vices. And now there's no money, and we're just 9 days to elections.
Well, Mr. Lawal, I would like to ask you and Mr. Adekoya this one question. I'd like you both to respond to it in succession. We have INEC as a stakeholder in this election. We have politicians, and you've listed quite a number of them that are going to be a part of the process. More than 1,000 people vying for Senate seats, more than 3,000 people vying for House of Representatives seats, on and on and on like that. Do you think, both as INEC, as the people who are going to vote, the election observers, the political parties, all of us, the security agencies, all in the mix of this election process, do you think we are ready? Both individually and collectively. If you say some are ready, which ones are ready? If you say we are not ready, which ones are not ready? First of all, you, Mr. Lawal.
Interestingly, we had this conversation yesterday after our civil society roundtable. The only people that are not ready are the politicians and their political party. And if you look at the trend, even right from their primaries, and what happened in their primaries that is still affecting and impacting the secondary election or the general election, like we call it. The security agencies are ready. Electorates are ready. INEC is ready. But the politicians are not ready. And I think maybe this is where we need to look into as civil society and partners towards progress, to invest really to this, electoral process or political process. The politicians, honestly, they are not ready. They're not ready for these general elections. from every indication rather that we've seen. Every other person or party is ready, but the politicians are not ready.
I see you have this election monitoring platform app. So what is worthy of note here, as you see behind us?
So we're deploying 2 platforms. We've deployed one in June 2022.
Is this the latest one?
No, this one will be deployed on election day.
Okay.
Yeah, the other map have been deployed already, and that one is a real-time situation report that is geolocated. And for us, we want to respond to issues that would mar the election. For us, we're not keen about the results. You know, INEC would declare a winner. But for us, it's the process that hampers on the integrity of the outcome. So we're looking, and 2 things are guiding us: the Electoral Act 2022, and also the INEC guideline for elections.
So what should we expect on this one? What is this going
This
to
is our electoral intelligence platform. So this would give us real-time intelligence on election day, both in the morning and in the afternoon. And it will give us specifically what is happening in real time in every polling booth across the country.
So how do they use this? Is it for the public to use?
Yes.
Or what?
Yes, this would be on our landing page on Connected Development on election day. And yes, it will be for general public to use. And we're also collaborating with newsrooms who are going to fact check most of this data before it comes to the front end. And we're hopeful that security agencies, which we're already in conversation with, would use this, INEC, and also media houses.
Okay, I'm also looking at it, and I'm saying that, I mean, from the mock elections which you witnessed, it seems that you also had a report of some sort. I'm looking at what you noted in terms of, and that's the very last page of your assessment now, what you noted in terms of observed beavers challenges. You're talking about tension, intimidation, shooting, kidnapping. I mean, these are some of the, well, let's say, the indexes which you use to monitor, is it the success? I'm looking at the very last page, just in case my producer is wondering. The very last page is monitoring the election process. And I'm wondering, how are you able to mention factors like tension?
Oh, because we talk to people. Mind you, we have a network of over 35,000 people, and we have what you might call cells in most of this local government and even at the ward level, where conversation and focus group discussions are happening. And we've seen, non-state actors, have already deployed mechanism. In some cases, you wake up in the morning and all you hear is gunshots. These are building up of tension and, and putting in fear. What leads to voter apathy is that fear that politicians are putting in the minds of people. We even remember the case of Borno, where just a few hours to the election, a bomb goes off. There are strategic plans by people who try to scuffle our democracy. So that's how they try to put fear in people and create that tension.
These beavers challenges that you highlight, I know that INEC, after the Osun Tribunal and then they said they're making changes. They're improving with every election. Will these challenges still subsist?
Well, mind you, Ekiti and Osun election is just pockets of election. This is a general elections, and we're hopeful that we'll at least get 60 to 70% turnout. Imagine if we get 70% turnout. Now, the turnaround time from accreditation to voting is 2 to 3 minutes per person. Our election starts by 8:30 and closes by 2:30.
Yeah.
In Kenya, and from our experience, Kenya's register is 21 million. They start voting from 6:30 to 5 o'clock. And we have a register of over 90 million. And imagine if we get 60, let's even say we get 60% of turnout. INEC have argued that, they would still accredit and allow the last person on the queue after 2:30 to cast their ballot. But the time is not enough. And this is a technology platform. You have to deal with battery. We know there's also power issue in the country. So for us, yes, when we observed the mock, there was that improvement. But the percentage of turnout during the mock, a lot of people didn't even know a mock election was ongoing. We only had, less than even 10% of the register during the mock election. So we're still worried that if you have that number of turnout and then INEC is not able to deliver, this would not only impact the 2023 general election, but as we also go into 2027.
But I mean, definitely these are things to look out for. Mr. Adekoya, I'm also looking at some of the things that you have put forward for us now. Well, it looks like we're almost out of time, but I'm a little concerned about the your projected outcome vis-a-vis the poll that came out, the NOI polls that came out yesterday, putting Peter Obi ahead of all the other contenders. I don't know whether do you see it as a problem, or do you see it as something that it could be good for our democracy?
It has two faces to it. What INEC will count at the end of the day is not the poll. It's those who come out to vote. Yeah. And if we go by our history of poor voter turnout, and if people repeat that in this election because of the unreasonableness of some party supporters and their expectation, this is one election where the three leading candidates are expecting a landslide. Their supporters are expecting a landslide. The propensity
are they being reasonable?
Those are politicians for you. The propensity of any one of the three easily conceding defeat is very low. The Peace Committee is raising an alarm in terms of this posture and the rhetoric from party supporters. Before now, the issues were politicians generated. Now, the other issue is that party supporters themselves are quite unreasonable. So, and at that level, so I think the Peace Committee, everybody has to come together to douse some of this tension, manage the expectation of their supporters, and make certain statements like the then President Goodluck Jonathan did when he said, my aspiration is not what the life of any Nigerian. So until we see that, some concerns.
All right, then Onyekachi Adekoya is a security consultant and CEO PR24 Risk Management Consulting, as well as Hamzat Lawal, Chief Executive Officer, Connected Development Co. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having us.
Just before we go, let's take a look at some comments that you have sent to us this morning. We've got two of them. This very first one comes through from Festus Akimboya, who says, PMB's address to the nation this morning is good, but he must be worried about the collateral damage from the redesign of our currency. His small U-turn of extending the legal tender of 200 Naira notes is encouraging, but he must ensure CBN brings out the cash.
Iro says, the Supreme Court has said all redesigned notes should continue to be legal tender till their final verdict. What then is this only 200 Naira note said by the president? This is what fella called Daddy Body Get Accident. I don't know.
And Joy Jayasimi has strong words as well. She says, well, hoping that Joy is female, thank goodness there is an extension of the Naira swap. But shouldn't this have come in earlier? Lives have been lost and property destroyed. True that. It's a Pyrrhic victory.
Dr. Babagana Adam, speaking on the same issue, says policy is laudable and should be encouraged, but the central bank, with all the skilled personnel, should have done better in planning and implementation of this policy. Policy processes are not just decreed, but consequences of it should have been foreseen.
I have an email from Dixon Ecker who says, I listened to the president as he addressed the nation, and I can't help but get more devastated. Is President Buhari disobeying the Supreme Court order? Why is it practically impossible for the CBN to release the new Naira notes for the people to at least access the daily withdrawal limit of 20,000 Naira? The implementation of this policy is the poorest in the world. I expected President Buhari to strictly direct the CBN to massively release the new notes for the citizens to access their daily withdrawal limit, but not the recirculation of the old 200 Naira notes, which will create more confusion, resulting to more anger in the land. Well, we sincerely hope that that will not be the case. We hope that since the situation is that people need access to cash, that if their cash needs are just as low as 20,000 Naira, then perhaps the 200 Naira should do it, old or new. And that we hope that that would at least douse some tension that's currently raging and also provide relief for vulnerable people.
Or better yet, we hope that they will come up with a strategy and hope against our hope, because hope is not a strategy. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow, actually. I'm Chamberlain, so have a good day.
Thank you for watching. I'm Maokbe Obi Yusuf.
And speaking of hope, there's hoping that the banks will open today in the light of yesterday's upheaval. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And I also hope that you've located up your polling unit If not, it's not too late. I'm Aya Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.